about Melanie White. Jim Bono, another person he went out with. Went out for a beer after work. Jim Bono thought it would be to talk about work, a position that he was leaving and that he thought Hemy would be interested in. But no, that's not what the conversation was about. The conversation was about this wonderful person, this soulmate that Hemy Neuman had met. And once again, to somebody he wouldn't normally talk to in this manner, he spills his guts about his personal life, even going so far as to talk about how great the sex is. Carmen Harding, his administrative assistant, another one who told you he's not one that talked about his personal life. When he was in the hospital, he told her all about his time in Israel, told her things that in 2 years she'd never heard from him before. Reconnecting with people, increased sociability. He definitely exhibited symptoms of that. Activity, planning to kill Rusty Sneiderman. He had a goal, he had a mission, and he planned it. Excessive involvement with high-risk activities. Day trading. He told Dr. Flores about all the day trading he did. Excessive spending. He's about to go bankrupt. They're about to lose their house. They have to be put on a strict budget, he and his wife, his family. Now, Dr. Browning and Dr. Huey talked about, well, and the state will point out that he blamed his wife for the excessive spending. But the fact is, and the evidence is, that he was in charge of their finances. His sister told you about the graduation party in 2008. This fabulous affair. They rented a room at a restaurant. They had great food, and then he wanted to go out to eat after that. They had new landscaping going on in their yard. All of this when they have no money to spend. High-risk activities, having an affair. He's married, she's his subordinate. That's high risk. And all the doctors agreed with that. It's in the DSM. He tells his HR manager about his affair, though he doesn't tell her that it's with a subordinate. He tells another coworker about this affair. That's pretty risky. You're telling people you're having an affair. High-risk activities, planning to shoot someone. And then his major symptom, the delusion, psychosis. The angel came to him in July of 2010 and told him that Sophia and Ian were his children. Is that possible? No. He didn't even know Andrea when they were born. He immediately goes to call Andrea. And again, this is what he told the doctors. But remember, he told all of the doctors this. And there's nobody who could say otherwise. And you'll have the phone records. Because that's the same day he started calling the hotel in Longmont, Colorado, over and over and over again. He calls her and he says, I'm coming out there to meet you. I'm coming to join you. Again, he's on a budget. He doesn't have the money to spend. This isn't a business trip. And you heard from the GE person that he didn't submit an expense report for this trip. He flew out there on his own dime with money he couldn't afford to go tell Andrea that the kids were his. Did he actually tell her? No. He told Dr. Flores, he told the other doctors, he tried to tell her, he started to tell her. If you search the world over, you won't find a better father for Ian and Sophia. And she cuts him off. And she says, I'm not leaving my husband. And so he doesn't go any further. He calls the hotel repeatedly. Buy her flowers, buy her chocolates, leave them in the room. I'll pay for it. I'll pay for it when I get there, but you go buy it out of your own money. This isn't the Ritz-Carlton. It's not the Four Seasons. And he won't give up. He calls over and over again, repeatedly, talking to different people, trying to convince them. The angel tells him he has to protect the kids, which he interprets as he has to kill them. Remember what his life was like as a child, the trauma he dealt with, having to protect his sister, being beaten by his father. And in his mind, based on what Rusty Sneiderman has told him, it's all morphed into this delusion that the kids are in danger, they're his, and they're in danger, and he has to protect them. If you view it in a vacuum, this delusion, the way Dr. Browning and Dr. Huey did, it seems made up. If you view it in light of Dr. Flores and all the work she put into this case, you know that that's what Hemy Neuman believed. It's not true, but it's what he believed. Psychosis, a break from reality. Again, there's no way these kids could have been his. Where's the evidence that he thought that they were? Well, he flies to meet Andrea as soon as the angel tells him. He begins sending her emails, more and more referencing the kids. And you'll have these emails back there with you. Defendant's Exhibit 8. He says, "Thank you for sharing with me." Picture that she sent him of she and Sophia after he gives her directions basically to take the afternoon off, spend the time with Sophia. And she sends him a picture, and he says, "Thank you for sharing with me. I feel like I was standing by the doorway, looking adoringly, with a huge, proud smile on my face. It made my week." A guy who's just having an affair with a lady who has kids doesn't talk like that. A guy who thinks these kids are his does. Another email. "You and the kids are amazing. Didn't realize Sophia helped with the cake. Your niece does look like a bully." Those are just a few of the emails. And again, you'll have them all. These are Defendant's Exhibits 8 and 12 and 24. You know from the extraction done on his iPad and his iPhone that he had family members' birthdays in his calendar. Mommy and Ronnie birthday, Andrea birthday, and that's bolded. Relly, his wife, Sophia, also bolded. Monique, his sister, Tom and Lee, his twins, Ian, a Sneiderman child, Adee, his younger daughter, Poppy, his father, all family members. And in there, he lists Andrea Sneiderman and her children, who he thought were his children. He takes steps not to harm the children when he's planning to kill Rusty Sneiderman. He takes the gun safety class. He waits until Rusty has taken Ian into the school and there aren't any children in the parking lot running around. Dr. Huey, Dr. Browning, the state will say that this delusion is not true because of the inconsistencies with the angel and the demon. They say it's not true because he didn't tell anyone. He didn't shout from the rooftops, "These kids are mine." But Dr. Flores explained the delusion. She explained to you that it was a non-bizarre delusion, that it's one that unless you're discussing it, unless you're talking about it, people wouldn't know about it. This case comes down to a battle of the experts. You have Dr. Browning and Dr. Huey, who came into the case almost 6 years after the incident, after the shooting, who could not realistically have spent the amount of time that they claim on this case. And keep in mind, they told you that they reviewed all of this information before they even saw Hemy Neuman. So that 25 days, that 600 hours is actually shorter, less. Which means they would have had to spend more time each day. It took both of them to come up with the diagnosis of malingering mental illness. Dr. Browning and Dr. Huey, who did no independent interviews, who did no testing of their own, who discount every possibility that he is mentally ill despite evidence to the contrary, who say he's malingering mental illness, but he's taking an appropriate dosage of mental health medications. Dr. Brickhouse, who didn't do a forensic evaluation, who didn't assess for symptoms, who had limited interaction with him, versus Dr. Flores, who's been with this case since 2011, who has the benefit of having spent time with him closer in time to the event when he was still exhibiting symptoms, who has the benefit of having gone back to see him this year in 2016, who personally interviewed witnesses in this case and family members, who lost a significant amount of money because it was the right thing to do, who's so respected that the state wanted to hire her, whose job it is to stay up to date and current on research, who spent more than 18 hours with Hemy Neuman, talking to him, who did 3 tests when 2 would have been more than enough for malingering, who still to this day believes Hemy Neuman is bipolar. You also have the doctors at the Department of Corrections who diagnosed him with bipolar. He went there in 2012. You'll have those records back there with you. Defendant's Exhibit 4. He went to the Department of Corrections in 2012. They diagnosed him with bipolar disorder. In 2013, after monitoring him for a year, they put him on medications, Remeron and Depakote. And over the course of 2013, 2014, and 2015, they kept him on those medications, changing and adjusting dosages, putting him through therapy. You'll see the different doctors who signed off on the medications, who've signed off on therapy, who spent time with him. They were in a better position and had a longer period of time than anyone other than Dr. Flores to monitor him, to see him, to talk to him, to diagnose him, to know what was going on with him. And this is the Department of Corrections. This isn't somebody he's paying to do what he wants. These are doctors that work for the state of Georgia and the Department of Corrections. The judge will tell you the law in this case. He's going to tell you the law that's going to apply to this case. And I expect he's going to talk about the burden of proof, that the state has the burden of proving beyond a reasonable doubt in every criminal case that the defendant, in this case Hemy Neuman, committed the crime. He's going to further tell you that in a case like this, where the defense is raising insanity, that the defense has to prove by a preponderance of the evidence that Hemy Neuman was insane. And what's preponderance of the evidence? It's more. It's a little more. So let's say you have the scales of justice, and they're even. The state has presented you this evidence, the defense has presented you this evidence, and there's one little piece of evidence, the weight of a feather, that the defense has presented you. That's enough. That's preponderance of the evidence. The defense has absolutely met that burden, and then some. If Hemy Neuman was faking his mental illness, if he planned this thinking all along, I'm going to say I was mentally ill, he could have done a better job. He's a smart man. He's an educated man. The state made a big deal, and I'm sure we'll point out to you in closing argument that when he went into the jail in 2011 and he did the intake assessment, he said, no, he's not hallucinating. He said, no, I'm not seeing anything, hearing anything. I'm not mentally ill. Well, people who are delusional don't know they're delusional. And at that moment, the questions they're asking him, he answered them truthfully. If he was planning to fake mental illness, don't you think he would have gone in there saying, yeah, I'm seeing things, I'm hearing things? He would have really nutted up. He didn't. If he's faking it, when he's being observed on the psychiatric unit in the jail, why not stand in his cell, talking to himself, pretending he's being spoken to by something not there? Why not put on a good show? He didn't. Why not give a history, and why not give symptoms that are exactly consistent with everything that is bipolar? He didn't. And we know he can research things. We know he can look things up. He didn't do that. He knows what his defense is. He knew when he spoke with Dr. Browning and Dr. Huey what they were looking for, because he's been evaluated by multiple doctors at this point. That would have been a great time for him to tell them, yeah, I'm still seeing things. Yeah, I'm still hearing things. These are my symptoms. He didn't do that. He was honest with them. You heard a recording that the state played for you of a conversation Hemy Neuman had with his sister just a couple of weeks ago, the beginning of August. And in that conversation, he is relaying to her an event that took place on the bus from the jail to court, or vice versa. And he and another inmate, who he's become friendly with, are talking about this third inmate who's clearly got some mental health issues. Says hasn't showered in a month, his hair's crazy, he's talking crazy. And if I win my case, I'm going to be hanging out with people like this. And the other guy, the Mexican guy, says, do you really want to win your case? As if maybe that's not such a great thing, to be hanging out with mentally ill people all the time. And the kicker for the state is that he says, well, I'd rather spend a few years with people like that than the rest of my life with gangbangers. Well, duh. Who wouldn't? And the reality is, of what he said, and the judge will tell you this, I expect in one of his charges, that if you find him not guilty by reason of insanity, he will go to a state mental hospital. And he will stay there until the court says otherwise. So it's not just a couple of years and then he goes home. He stays there until the court says he can go home. After all you've heard over the last couple of weeks, there is more than enough evidence to show you that Hemy Neuman is bipolar. There is more than enough evidence to show you that he was insane at the time he pulled that trigger. And the judge is going to instruct you on the legal standard. He didn't have to be crazy or insane the day before or the day after. He had to be insane on November 18th, 2010. And the evidence has shown you that, in fact, he was. And so I ask that you go back there in that jury room, and after you pick a person, you go through this evidence carefully. You go through the emails. You go through the medical records. You go through all the evidence that you will have back there with you, and you will come to the right conclusion. You will come to the right verdict. And that is that Hemy Neuman is not guilty by reason of insanity.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the defense, has completed its closing arguments. The next portion of the trial will be the state will have an opportunity to give its closing remarks. What I'm going to do is go ahead and give you a brief break with the Assistant Deputy Moore. I'm going to go ahead and give you a 10-minute stretch break at this point in time. And Deputy Moore is going to have you back in the jury box probably at 11:15. And then we will start with the state's case, and they have a right to speak just like this. Okay? Deputy Moore, let's put her back in.